Hey now, this is Screen Watching, your favorite podcast dedicated to what I and my co-host Simon Foster have been watching on our screens. There are so many pretenders out there, so many other imitators trying to talk about what Simon and I have been watching on our screens, but this is the genuine article. Folks, big show, hopefully not a long show, but who knows? Simon and I are involved, so length and girth are both considerations. Simon Foster,
Right.
as long as I've known you,
Yes, sir.
you have very explicitly told me that you are a man of the 80s, and as such, you've watched a lot of the works of one Steven Spielberg.
Mhm.
You emulate a lot of Spielberg in your life.
I do.
We can see there you've got your Spielberg-type beard, which
Mhm.
is not a coincidence.
Very much
Okay,
so.
and just to let people know how much of a fan Simon is of Spielberg and how much he tries to bring Spielbergian decision-making into his own world, not Simon's decisions, but certainly embracing what Mr. Spielberg has to offer. Regularly, he will ask that this podcast be black and white and that I wear a red jacket.
That's exactly right. That is a deep dive bit of humour from you, and I appreciate it. I went and saw the new Disclosure Day movie this week, which is Spielberg's return to the alien oeuvre, and I have some thoughts on that. And of course, it's the biggest television event of the year this week, the World Cup. The soccer is on, and I'll be looking at some stuff to watch when there's no soccer to watch.
Oh, sorry, I thought biggest event of the year was last weekend with Netflix's Office Romance, which I will be talking about on the podcast this week. I've also taken a bit of a trip to the cinema. I'm going to talk about a film which is... Sorry, wait a sec. I went to a film festival. How
You're
classy.
Such a snob.
Such a
Film
snob.
snob.
And look, when I'm going to a film festival, I want to see only the classiest and most artistically vibrant of cinema. So I went and saw a film called Gail, Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass. We're going to talk about that on the podcast this week, as well as, because I'm the TV guy, I should do something on television. So there's a new series called Alice and Steve. It's a comedy. It's interesting. It really poses this really difficult question, which is, hey, you're there in your mid-50s. You've got your best friend for many decades at this point. What happens if, say, you start a relationship with their daughter? Big question to ask. Slightly icky, or is it? It's all in the presentation, and that is the slogan for this program. You're watching Screen Watching. This is all in the presentation.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover. What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, Simon, this is a very big week for things on our screens.
Sir Daniel, everyone, it really is, with Disclosure Day dropping into cinemas. It is the first big American summer directorial effort from Senior Spielbergo since the last Indiana Jones film all those years ago that he directed, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and we all know how well that went down. It had flourishes of alien sort of influence in it. For those who got to the end, no. And he returns to that with Disclosure Day. Now, full disclosure, no pun intended, some pun intended, on my part, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Spielberg's 1977 film, is my favourite Spielberg movie. I'm not saying it's his best movie. Maybe I am.
Which is clearly 1941.
Yeah, which is clearly 1941. The other Spielberg film that he followed up Close Encounters with. In fact, now that you've mentioned 1941, I might talk for 15 minutes on that instead. No, I won't do that. I've done that before. In Disclosure Day, I was hoping for a return to that sort of wide-eyed staring at the sky, that sense of wonder where a lot of Spielberg characters sort of look at something with wide eyes and we don't get to see what it is. So this amazing sense of awesomeness is created. That's exactly what Close Encounters is. It's exactly what Jaws is to some extent. A lot of his best movies represent that sense of wonder that he became synonymous with, certainly in his early movies. I guess the peak of that would be E.T. the Extraterrestrial. So he's working in a space here with Disclosure Day that he knows very well. But he's working at a time in history, let's call it 2026, when the notion of aliens, of cover-ups, of conspiracies are very much a part of the world that he helped create. We have this sense of wonder from his early films, particularly Close Encounters, that's now become drilled down upon so that there's a darkness to it, so that this involves government cover-up, so that it involves secrets being kept from the people by our elected officials for whatever reasons. In this one, we learn that Colin Firth's organisation, called Wardex, has been put in charge of 79 years worth of secrets to do with alien landings, alien craft, captured biological entities, technology being used from downed extraterrestrial spacecraft. And Josh O'Connor, who has survived an abduction as a very young lad, now has in his possession all of these secrets on a series of very flash-looking USB sticks that he's carrying with him. Of course, Colin Firth and his henchmen are chasing him down, and that's kind of 4/5 of this movie. He is being tracked. The other aspect of this film, which really tries to engage the heart more than anything, is the Emily Blunt character. As the trailer suggests, she's a weather woman who starts to talk in ticks and clicks, and maybe channeling some kind of alien language that only Josh O'Connor can understand.
Now, Simon,
yes.
Sorry, if I can interrupt.
You must.
There's two things. There's a lot of hubbub around the place that this is covertly a sequel to another beloved movie. I'm kind of curious to know the answer. Is this actually a covert sequel to what I believe is the 1994 film Disclosure, starring Demi Moore and Michael?
It is
Douglas?
not. There are
Okay.
no office romances in this, unlike the end of this podcast.
Is this you and I, or
Yes.
we're not? Okay. The other thing is, and this is kind of evidence that Simon doesn't edit the podcast at all ever, we haven't played a clip of the movie yet. So maybe this is a time where we could watch a bit of footage from it and you can just finish out a little bit of a conversation about it.
I did
after
leap
that.
straight into it. Let's play a clip. That'd be far more interesting.
What did you steal?
Secrets. The data they paid me to protect.
Are they people?
No.
Good morning, Kansas City. Let's take a look at today. Today's.
So as you can see there, he's working in a space that he's very familiar with. He's reteamed with Janusz Kaminski, who's his cinematographer of note from the last 20-odd years. They shot Saving Private Ryan and a bunch of other films. That's part of the problem here. And I do have a problem with Disclosure Day, and no one's sadder to say that than I am, because I went into this film expecting it to be my new favourite film of all time, and that could be part of the reason why I felt no pressure at all on Mr. Spielberg and everyone involved. But the problem I have with this is that it's very long, it's very convoluted. This is a far from economical script from David Koop, and they've worked well together. They've worked well together on a little film called Jurassic Park. But in this one, they try very hard to create a big backstory that becomes increasingly unwieldy. They try to jam in fantastical elements that don't earn their place in this film without giving too much away. And we're not averse to spoilers on here, but I don't want to spoil two things. All I have to do is say invisible fire trucks, and you get some idea of where Spielberg and Koep take this film. And it doesn't earn that passage, nor do the elements which feel more like a 70s chase film, something like 3 Days of the Condor, nor do they gel with those elements. So this is a film that, despite sort of hurtling forward in a couple of big chase scenes and going cross-country as the bad guys track down Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt, it has a very inert sense of energy. It has a very sort of a stillness that indicates this film never really found a reason for being. Spielberg can do meaningful very well. He can certainly do magical very well. And this movie strives towards those goals, but it never gets there, and it was such a disappointment for the ending to come around, and all the awe and wonder that I was kind of hoping would be there all along is packaged up into news bites and iPhone segments that are presented as a news bulletin, and that was a major letdown, a major letdown. So unfortunately, this is a disappointment.
Yeah, I haven't seen this yet. And I was very excited about sneaking out of the house midweek to get along to a late night screening of it. But the reviews for it have maybe dampened my enthusiasm a little bit. So I'll try to get to it over the weekend, but no promises.
It's interesting reading and I know you and I sort of have different views on Rotten Tomatoes, but looking at Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's sitting at like 83 or 85% as we record this. But you go through and actually have a look at the reviews. There's a lot of 3 out of 5s. There's a lot of it's good but not great type of reviews. People sort of saying, wow, it's kind of not what I thought it would be and it's not that good. And even if it's something in itself, it's still not that good. So you look at that Rotten Tomato score and think that it's a critical hit. I would suggest it's getting very mixed responses from the critical brethren out there.
Yeah, look, I think anyone looking at Rotten Tomatoes to work out if something is a, critical smash or not, and maybe not looking at the right site to aggregate that sort of business. As I always suggest, I think the better way to go is Letterboxd and just sort of see what people are rating it as.
That's the people's opinion, yeah, for sure. Although that's very much becoming a critic's sort of stronghold as well, but it certainly has more.
Yeah, but like if you go to like
discussion.
the ratings little bar on it, you kind of get to see where people kind of feel about it. You get to see like the gradients a little bit. So it's not just an overall score. You get to, yeah.
All right. What are you going to be chatting about, my friend?
Look, we talked about this a moment ago, but we did go to the Sydney Film Festival on Saturday night. Simon and I went along.
I know, it was sweet. It was nice. We had a good time. We actually spent a lot of social time together, didn't we? We ate ice cream and ate sushi burgers and chicken wings. So it was a good night out. And then settled in for this little film.
Yeah, covertly, this entire idea for the segment was going to be a review of the burger I had from Gajima, which is a
You should have seen him inhale this. He inhaled this, people. It was insane to watch.
Like, that burger, 9 out of 10.
You did love your burger. And I love my
It was
chicken wings
delicious.
too. It was a very crispy sort of chicken wing. I shouldn't talk about inhaling food. I had 9 of those in about 3 minutes.
And sorry, just to explain this burger as well.
Yes.
This isn't just a standard burger. This is a cheeseburger, but instead of buns, you've got yourself a bit of sushi, like, the, what do you call the wrap?
Patty, like a patty.
No, the wrap that you have a sushi, that you...
Oh, like a
sushi in.
seaweed roll, sort of seaweed paper
Yeah, but
wrap.
like it's got a name that isn't like seaweed wrap. It's the...
I don't know.
Gosh, names dropped out of my mind entirely. But a little bit of that, a little bit of rice as your bun replacement, and off you go. Delicious.
They do good work.
Doesn't
How do you
sound
pronounce
it.
it? Gojima? Gojima.
It's Kojima, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've only been there.
They do good work. This segment has been brought to you by Gojima.
Anyway, all that is going to be cut out of the podcast in just a moment so that I can say myself and Simon checked out Gail, Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass. Let's watch a clip and we'll talk about our experience and also who our own celebrity sex passes would be after we watch the trailer.
This is Willowbrook. I know everybody in this town, and I know all their stories. But no story is crazier than the story of Gail Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass.
Tom?
Gail, I was just about to text you. This was my one free pass, remember?
Do you really think that we should do this?
Tom gave you a free pass, too.
That's true. I had a celebrity free pass thing with my fiance, but he took it literally. So now I need to have sex with John Hamm to even out the score and save my relationship.
You did the D, now you gotta do the do.
Yes.
Gail needs to do the nasty with Mr. John Hamm ASAP.
I am so sorry that we got you fired. Hi, we're here to see John Hamm.
Simon, 2 cards that I need to put down on the table.
Yes.
First card, let me just place it down. This film is probably the funniest movie I'm going to see in cinemas this year. And I'm going to further that and say it's probably the funniest movie I've seen in cinemas in quite a number of years.
I haven't heard you bellow with laughter previously at all, in fact. So your reaction to at least half a dozen scenes in this movie was quite delightful. You were thoroughly engaged, as was I. I thought it was an absolute hoot and a very sweet story to boot, but continue.
Very nice little bit of a rhyme structure there. The second card I want to put on a table is, I guess maybe who our celebrity sex passes would be.
Oh,
Simon Foster, I don't know if you have such a thing within your, familial relationship that you have in your household there. But, let's say that you haven't had that conversation before. Who would your celebrity pass be?
It's always been age appropriate for me, would be Michelle Pfeiffer and Winona Ryder. They've always been my it girls since day one. Age inappropriate, probably Margot Robbie at this stage. She's the belle of the ball as far as I'm concerned. Lots of and Renata. But see, Renata's, I don't look at her as like a sex thing. I think just she's a really lovely, interesting actress, Renata Rensby from Backrooms. She's my girl at the moment, but I think I've said enough.
Yeah. My difficulty with the celebrity sex pass is that in order for this to actually work, I'd need to do a bit of time travel back to 1990 and meet the 1990 era Samantha Mathis from Pump Up the Volume.
You have mentioned Samantha Mathis before. You do have a bit of a thing for her for sure.
Yeah, but then if you're introducing time travel into the whole celebrity sex pass
that's
the
thing.
problem then is that if you're going to talk about, say, like a Winona Ryder, for example, you're going to try to, use your sex pass, but suddenly you find yourself having to time travel, and then like you're in a queue with like 15 other people in front of you.
Yeah.
For How to Make an American Quilts era Winona Ryder.
She'd wave me forward, but I see your point.
See,
if you're talking about
gross.
all time...
That's a bit gross because suddenly you're just like, oh, Winona Ryder's into the idea of, 15 to 5,000 sweaty, just awkward men from across space-time who are all lining up to have a moment with a woman that they don't know in real life, but, seeing her vision on the screen.
But if you're talking time travel, I mean, I would say Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth is a stunningly beautiful woman. Even Kathleen Turner at the peak of her alluredness, sort of romancing the Stone Body Heat era, was quite the image. Anyway, I'm becoming distracted.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, like, you can choose all that, but I mean, Mary Tyler Moore circa the Dick Van Dyke Show is just like right there.
Good.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let us move forward and actually talk about this movie. So, Gail Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass. This was one of the films I was looking forward to most for this year because it's not only got this really interesting sort of funny premise to it, which is this idea that you've got a lady named Gail Daughtrey. She is a woman living in every town, USA. She's like a lovely small town lady with small town dreams and is happy living a small town existence.
High school boyfriend, always just never got out of that little burg that she lives in, and she loves it.
Yeah, she's totally into it. And so she's going to get married to her high school sweetheart. And the two of them have a very sort of close, lovely relationship, and nothing needs to change about it. Until they have this sort of joking conversation about a celebrity sex pass on the way to a book signing that they're going to with one Jennifer Aniston, who in the film has written a cookbook. And so they go to hear her do a reading from her cookbook, which is wonderfully silly. And then, they're talking about the celebrity sex pass, and the fiance, he's not really he's not into the idea of the celebrity sex pass, but as they're walking out of it, he's like, oh no, maybe Jennifer Aniston, and he's like, oh, that's very funny, and so they sort of settle on that. Anyway, he has to go back into the bookstore because he's left his wallet behind or something,
his jacket,
and suddenly finds himself with an opportunity to have sex with Jennifer Aniston, who's a willing participant and totally into it. So Gail Daughtrey character goes wandering back trying to find her fiance because he's been gone for a while, and finds that they're mid-coitus. And he's like,
mid-coitus? You better believe it. That was quite the scene.
Yeah. And he's like, wait, no, we just agreed that Jennifer Aniston was okay. I wouldn't have done it otherwise, but we just said it was fine. So she's stuck in a situation where, I mean, legally that passes muster, but she's like, well, I kind of need to even the score a little bit. So maybe I should join my friend who's about to go to Los Angeles and try to enact my own celebrity sex pass with her approved person, which is one Jon Hamm.
The Ham Man.
Yeah, from TV's Your Friends and Neighbors or TV's The Division. I'm sure he was in another show at some point as well.
Now, to find his way to Jon Hamm, they have to first enlist the young intern at the CAA agency, who may or may not know where he lives. He doesn't. And when that doesn't work out, they do manage to stumble across, through some very odd means of deduction, one Ian Slattery playing himself in...
Ian Slattery, Simon? How about John Slattery?
John Slattery. You know what's really funny? Ian Slattery is a kid I went to high school with, and it just got in my head that Ian Slattery is it. No, it's John Slattery, Hamm's co-star from the aforementioned Mad Men, and he's playing a very funny version of himself who's been left behind as Hamm sort of soars into the stratosphere of pop culture. He's left hitting a punching bag in a garage somewhere.
That's it. So, look, this is the sort of comedy where you're going to find quite a number of unexpected celebrity cameos that are sort of jammed into this in ways which are both natural as well as horrendously forced, but also the really forced celebrity cameos you're absolutely there for because they're delightfully chosen.
Yeah.
But broadly, what you've got is this woman going on a quest to, land Jon Hamm. But as she goes along, what we're really seeing is almost a remake of The Wizard of Oz as she goes and picks up people that lack courage and lack, other elements of their lives so that eventually they can go and see the wizard, who is John Hamm.
The Wiz.
It's a very silly, not even quite relatable premise, but certainly there's a humanity to it all, which is very funny and very, it's very tangible feeling. And that tangibility comes from the fact that this is directed by David Wain and also co-written by David Wain and regular collaborator Ken Marino. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with David Wain's work generally, but this is the guy which directed one of my favorite comedies, which is this highly underrated, incredibly silly film called Role Models from a number of years ago. So that was him directing Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott, a.k.a. Stifler, because no one knows who Sean William Scott is.
Until you say Stifler.
Yeah, but 150% of people all know who Stifler is.
Even if they haven't seen American Pie, they just know who Stifler is.
Especially if they haven't seen American Pie, they still know who he is. It just cuts through.
It was my wrestling name in high school.
Role Models, Wet Hot American Summer is probably the thing that is, when the New York Times obit is written for David Wain at some point in his life, or obviously at the end of his life, Wet Hot American Summer will be the first thing that's mentioned. It's just the thing. But he's certainly worked with Ken Marino over the years, and through a whole bunch of comedy films, through appearances in their TV shows back in the 90s, The State and Stella, which came a few years after that. David Wain has just picked up this large network of a who's who of funny people in American sort of improv film, TV, comedy. And so you really get this vibrancy that comes through in Gail Daughtrey, where he is sort of leaning upon some of the more interesting figures that he's sort of regularly worked with over the years to crop up in small roles throughout this, all bringing the funny.
The film, and I thought long and hard about it afterwards, no pun intended. The film that this most reminded me of, in terms of the laughs that I had and the sweetness at the center of it, was There's Something About Mary. And that was the movie that sort of, it was also daft, but had these beautifully etched comic characters that all completely worked within this crazy world that Farrelly created. And I think David Wain does a very similar thing to very similar effect in Gail Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass, who we should point out that Gail Daughtrey is played by one Zoe Deutsch, who's having a good year. Heard Gene Seberg in the Richard Linklater film about the black and white film, which name I can't remember at the moment, Nouvelle Vague or something like that.
Nouvelle Vague.
Nouvelle Vague. She was great in that, and she's great here as Gail Daughtrey, playing a very perky young lady. So we laughed wholeheartedly at this. I would make the point that Wain has now got, at least a couple of decades, maybe 3 decades of practice behind him in terms of nailing the timing and the character work that it takes to pull off a comedy of this kind. He knows his rhythms. He knows where to edit. And I think that helps a lot with a film that's kind of, very silly and even a little bit over the top at times and quite unrealistic in the way it sort of plays some of its comedies. But he is so adept at hitting the right notes and hitting the right beats that it just wins you over.
Yeah. So look, I don't disagree at all. I think that David Wain comes to this with incredible confidence. But also the thing I'd probably say about David Wain is that he's always come to all of his projects with a lot of confidence. I think that's been there right from the beginning. Even his first film being Wet Hot American Summer. If you're going to look at it on the spectrum of how confident is this movie versus other David Wain films, you can certainly look at that and see, it's a little bit sort of shaggier in many regards. But at the same time, I think Wet Hot American Summer comes out very confident of what it was and what it was parodying. And there's a reason why it's a classic. And I think it's a large part is just being so confident about its comedic voice. I think it's a very similar comedic voice that you find through all of his work leading towards Gail Daughtrey and the Celebrity Sex Pass. But what I think is probably something that he's been increasingly layering into his work is maybe that sweetness, which I think has been there from the beginning kind of, but it's certainly a lot more evident in Gail Daughtrey than in some of his earlier films.
Now, we're breaking a few rules with this one. This one hasn't been slated. I think it's got an American release date moving forward. It's actually
in July.
It's actually a Sony Pictures Classic release, which seems very odd for a bawdy comedy like this one. Sweetly bawdy. It's not Porky's or anything, but don't know if it has an Australian release date set yet. It doesn't have the star power to push its way to the front of the multiplex queue down under here, so maybe this will go straight to the home entertainment channels here in Australia. I hope not, because I think it would play. It did play really well with an audience at the festival.
So we saw this thing on a Saturday night, playing at 8:30 at night. Like, this is the time where you can get people to the cinema to have a good laugh. And there was maybe 15 people in the entire theater. That said, even though it's just only like a smattering of people and everyone was spread out in a very large theater, you could still hear the laughter. And there was definitely a very strong vibe coming through that there was an audience that were right into this. Which
let me just
to be able to
address
capture that in such a large room with so few people, I think really speaks to something here.
Let me just address that very quickly. I get, as regular listeners know, I run a film festival and I lie awake at night bemoaning the fact that sometimes I only get 15 people to my sessions, or, it's a quiet session that doesn't quite work. And here's the Sydney Film Festival at 8:30 on a Saturday night showing what should be a hugely popular movie. And as you say, they didn't have a huge crowd turnout for this one. The more I think about that, the more I think that speaks to the nature of the festival goer. If you've been to, and I've been to a couple of other sessions this week at the Sydney Film Festival, it's a very elderly group of people who buy passes, settle in for the movies that without really knowing what they are. For the over 50s, let's say over 40s, to come out at 8:30 on a Saturday night in George Street and watch something called Celebrity Sex Pass, I don't think they might have made a programming mistake in terms of appealing to who their core audience was. I just think it shows what an aging demographic goes to certainly the Sydney Film Festival.
Yeah, look, I'm not a huge fan of the Sydney Film Festival generally, and outside of some of those really big international film festivals, I think that it's a festival that turns out for a festival, but maybe aren't actually turning out for movies on the regular.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, for
but
sure.
that gets us away from this film. Gail, Daughtrey and a Celebrity Sex Pass. I just want to talk about some of the actors that are in this, because we should probably just discuss that before we get out, because I did talk about this being sort of a bit of a who's who of just people that are generally just very funny out in the world. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got Zoe Deutsch playing the titular Gail Daughtrey. I didn't really know Deutsch at all. Like, I've seen her in a couple of things here and there, but not really anything where I've suddenly taken a lot of stock of her. But she is the daughter of one Leah Thompson.
And Howard Deutsch.
Yeah, and Howard Deutsch, director of Some Kind of Wonderful.
That's right. And Pretty in Pink, yeah.
Yeah, but, notable there because that's where he met Leah Thompson and that all became a thing. There's also a villainous turn by Sabrina Impacciatore. So she's the lady that we know from The White Lotus season 2.
Yep.
The Italian lady that was running the front desk. In this, she's playing almost the exact same character she plays on The Paper, which is the Office spin-off that's launched in the last sort of year or so. I think she's hilarious, but it was weird seeing her play almost the exact same character with the same comedic sort of intonations. But
she was very loud in this one, but she was there for the party for sure.
Other people you'll see in this is Ken Marino, who co-wrote the movie. Joe Latrulio plays a character that crops up briefly in this. Fred Melamed is the first person we see on screen in this film, and that is always incredibly welcome. Anytime I see him on screen, particularly if he's the first person you're going to see on screen, you just know that you're in for a good time. I don't know what it is about Melamed, but the Melamed stamp of approval is clearly here. There was a bit of a Serious Man reunion taking place with another actor who I'm not going to mention by name, but it is one of the greater celebrity cameos that appear in this film. The regular David Wain players, so Michael Ian Black, Kerry Kenny Silver, Thomas Lennon. Jennifer Aniston's kind of becoming a regular David Wain sort of mainstay. She appeared in his film Wanderlust quite a few years ago now, and I think it's a relationship that I think that they are keen to keep on sort of drawing upon. There's one celebrity cameo who doesn't even have a line in it, I believe, but makes a very welcome appearance at the end. I'm going through the list here, and there's a couple of celebrities I don't quite want to mention because when they appear on screen, it's a delight. John Slattery's in this, and I love Slattery. It's a bit of a who's who. There is obviously the big question, does John Hamm appear in the movie? And I don't want to say.
No, it's probably best we don't say. Like you say, he is the wizard. And stay for a little post-credit sequence where that reference, the wizard, is also notable, which I thought was very funny as well. Maybe that's a deliberate thing. Anyway, I think we've spoken at length about Gail Daughtrey. Let's just say it was one of the more fun nights you and I have had together. Probably third, maybe fourth on the rank of fun nights we've had together. And I do hope it gets a cinema run. It's a movie that deserves a big screen audience.
Yeah, look, Gail Daughtrey and A Celebrity Sex Pass, as I said, one of my favorite comedic films in years. We don't really get good laugh out loud comedies in the cinema anymore, but this absolutely delivers. This is, it might be my favorite David Wain film today, and I've really liked quite a lot of his stuff previously.
There we go. Daniel Barrett, what is happening on the small screen? All this big screen talk is very unlike you. Let's get down to little television stuff.
Look, let's play a quick clip from Alice and Steve, shall we?
We've known each other for over 30 years. How old do you think we are?
I don't know, like 60?
They have no idea how cool we are.
I wish I was in love.
You deserve to be loved.
Anybody'd be lucky to have you.
You just right.
Mum, what's happened? Yanis and I broke up. Would it be okay if I moved back in?
Of course, yay! I mean, not yay.
Hello. Yeah, your mum said I could stay.
Can't believe you're single. I hadn't noticed it before, but you are weirdly hot.
Not sure about the use of the word weirdly.
Maybe you have a weird smell?
So as we saw from the clip there, Alice and Steve has a couple of familiar faces in it. Jermaine Clement, who people would know best from Avatar: The Way of Water, but then also maybe Flight of the Conchords.
Everything is seen through your blue lens when it comes to Avatar, isn't it?
Look, I also could have mentioned his appearance in Avatar: Fire and Ash.
I remember
which
him
is
from one of the
appearing
Muppet
on
movies.
Disney Plus in just a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, that's exciting, isn't it? Are you going to watch it again? You're not going to watch it again, are you?
Well, look, I'm going to see it again at some point in my life, but I've never seen an Avatar film at home because I don't have a 3D film setup at home, and I don't actually see the point in watching these films in 2D. It just kind of lacks part of what James Cameron's trying to bring to the experience of seeing it.
How was Alice and Steve?
Alice and Steve, great question. Jermaine Clement, star of the Avatar movies, is teamed up here with Nicola Walker, who's a British comedic actress you've seen in a whole bunch of things over the years. So the two of them appearing in this is like an imprimatur of, it's going to be a quality thing you're watching. So you got this. You got those two, they're playing friends that have been in each other's lives since their 20s. They're now in their 50s. So like they've got some
Like
history. They've been through relationships and love's lost, and she's in a long-term committed relationship where she's got a couple of kids. And so he's been part of that family unit for years and years. In the first episode, he's going through a breakup with his ex. He's gotten fairly drunk and he's hanging out at his friend Alice's house. Anyway, while he's there sleeping on the couch, which is something which I don't think is an unusual sort of occurrence.
No, not at all.
Yep. Her daughter comes home. Her daughter's in her mid-20s, and the two of them strike up a bit of a 1 a.m. conversation on the couch, which leads to a hookup that probably shouldn't happen.
And how old's he?
He's in his 50s.
Good Lord. I'm in my 50s. This rarely happens to me.
You need to spend more time on friends' couches at 1 o'clock in the morning. But so they've got this thing that happens, and the two of them, they actually kind of like each other and want to kind of make a go at it. So it doesn't take long until the Alice character finds out that her best friend has been sleeping with her daughter. And that obviously doesn't go very well. She's really not into it. And so these two good friends sort of become warring enemies over this relationship that sparked. Listening to that as a premise, I kind of felt like this would be either sort of awkwardly icky or just, it's all in a way that things are handled. Yes. So sometimes you watch this thing and it's like, I can kind of get on board with this. And it's a bit of an icky premise, but I've kind of bought into these characters. And you do kind of buy into the characters. But what I didn't buy into on this was just the tone of it. It just felt so angry and just sort of mean-spirited. I just couldn't really quite get on board with it. Like, it's not a sweet comedy in the way that Gail Daughtrey is. It's a very acidic comedy, which will be to some people's taste, but it was an acidic comedy without being particularly funny as well.
She as in the 20-ish year old, I'm not quite sure how old she is, mid-20s, I'm assuming. And I'm just looking at here, Yaeli Topol-Muglith.
Yes.
Certainly possesses all the qualities prized by the superficial male, but she has to have agency in this. She has to have some sort of strong character arc or strong determining to make this watchable.
Yeah, look, there's no point where I'm watching this going, oh, well, she just kind of feels like a vague idea of a person. Like, she seems fairly realistic. Like, I could sit down and absolutely appreciate, if anything, I think she's more fully drawn than the Steve character was.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so
I can see the
that's not
connection.
the problem with it. It's just it's a comedic tone issue where I don't think the jokes, which it's not unfunny, but I just don't know that the jokes were aesthetically funny enough to meet the tone of this, which is just so, I'm going to say the word again, just acidic.
The casting of Jermaine Clement is interesting because even as an aging man, and I assume he's got to be in his 50s in real terms or thereabouts, he's a very charismatic, very sort of compelling figure. And I can see, you got to be careful how you say this sort of stuff, but I could see him being with a younger, artistic, adventurous type of woman. So the actual melding of characters here is not really the issue, but it has to be an even balance, an even sort of representation of both people and, of course, the Alice character. So I'm sort of keen to watch this to see how they manage it. But it's
Well, it is a dangerous premise. And again, the premise doesn't end up being sort of the thing that sinks the program at all. Like, it's just purely tone. I do want to mention one actor that crops up in this one, and it is the husband of the Alice character. It's an actor named Joel Fry. Now, he's been around in a whole bunch of things over the years. You've probably seen him crop up in Game of Thrones. He was in 2012. He's just, again, one of these actors that crops up in a lot of British movies and TV shows. But most notably, if anyone watched the... I'm going to call it a smash hit because it kind of was. It was a bit of a lo-fi thing which scored a sequel, Bank of Dave. So he's the guy...
Oh, you loved your Bank of Dave.
Well, I don't know if I loved it, but I quite liked it. He was the lawyer that got sent to go and represent Dave in the first film and wasn't back for the second movie for whatever reason.
Can I quickly tell my Jermaine Clement story? And I will tell it very quickly. I was once working for an international publication called Variety newspaper.
Variety?
Bunny Ears,
I've not heard of it.
Bunny Ears, the show business Bible. They flew me to LA for my first ever American film market, which is like the big film market where distributors go from all over the world to buy movies for their territories. And a young Jermaine Clement was in a film called Tonga Ninja. They had an event at the New Zealand Embassy in Los Angeles. I was invited along by the New Zealand Film Commission and went there standing quite wide-eyed in the corner of this giant room while people walked around me sort of hobnobbing, and I had no one to talk to and nothing to say until I found myself standing next to Jermaine Clement, who said to me, "I feel exactly the same way, mate. I do not belong here. I don't know any of these people," despite having started the movie. And we sat and talked for about 25 minutes, and he was quite the lovely gentleman. So I followed his career with interest, and he's very talented, of course, so I like watching what he does. But yes, we were two lost souls swimming in the LA fishbowl of embassy dues. So there you go.
Now, I haven't met him, but he does bring to the screen a winning charm about him, even to the point where when he's murdering whale-type creatures on Pandora, you're still kind of rooting for him.
Sure.
And so in this, like, I think that his casting goes a really long way to accepting that the Steve character is, one, charming enough to be able to pull this off, but then two, that you actually kind of want to ride along with him to a certain degree. At the same time, though, like, you know, it's not him, it's not any of the actors, it's just purely tonally for this.
Has he found his perfect role, apart from Concords? Has he found the role that best suits his very unique appearance, presentation, talent, delivery?
We've already talked about it, Simon, and you don't like talking about it for some reason.
Oh, that whole Avatar thing. All right, fine. All right, yeah, he was good in Avatar. Which one was he? He was the whale killer? Is that his name?
Well, he was the reluctant scientist who was on board.
That's right. Yes, I do get it now. Yeah, he was kind of on the alien side, wasn't he? Or not alien. We were the aliens.
Very much so. These were the native creatures of Pandora, Simon, being hunted mercilessly for their blubber thing.
I'm just letting you talk as long as you want about Avatar, because that means I can talk as long as I want about soccer. Hey, let's talk about the World Cup. It has started. The biggest, stop yawning, the biggest television event of the year is with us.
I've been up late just not watching the soccer.
Unlike me, as we record this, I was up at some ungodly hour this morning to watch Mexico beat South Africa. 3 red cards in the opening game of the World Cup. Anyway, I digress. Wasn't a bad game. The World Cup will be taking over our televisions, certainly around the world, for the next, I want to say 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. I'm not quite sure how long it runs for. When you can't watch soccer, there are some soccer-related shows on your television that you can fall back on. This week, I binged through all 4 episodes of Dear England. This is the story of Gareth Southgate, as played by Joseph Fiennes, and how he resurrected the English soccer team. It is a fairly rousing portrayal. Joseph Fiennes is an actor I don't really dig that much. I always find him very mannered, but he is exactly right to play the very mannered Gareth Southgate. This film captures not only this series, I should say, captures not only the on-field action, but also the boardroom shenanigans. It's playing on Foxtel here in Australia and on your channels around the world. Check your guides. There's a terrific movie that skimmed through cinemas, unfortunately, but has come to most platforms. It's called Saipan. It's the story of the clash between Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy, the Irish captain and coach, respectively. Steve Coogan plays the coach, and they have a bitter feud that was well documented as one of the great sort of national team implosions in World Cup history, all set on this small Japanese island before the 2022 World Cup. And it's got some terrific conflict scenes in it. So if you haven't seen Saipan, have a look at that. Here in Australia, the funny man Ed Cavalier and Santo Shalara are back with their Cup Fever recap show at the end of every World Cup day. So you'll get a few laughs and a different perspective on the World Cup if you're here in Oz. That's on the SBS. So are you going to watch any soccer over the next 6 weeks, Daniel Barrett?
No.
Not a fan? Have you ever played soccer?
Yeah.
Because it's not really a lot of sports, I find this with cricket as well. The more you played it and the more you understand the nuances of it, the easier it is to sit and watch a 5-day test match, which I do every summer. 6 5-day test matches, actually. But soccer's certainly a spectacle. There's drama to it on the world stage.
That's fine. I just get bored watching TV sports.
Yeah, okay.
I'll watch something in real life and I'll enjoy that, but I just don't enjoy watching it too much on TV. There's other things I could be watching.
Well, that's very true. And one of those other things is the new J-Lo comedy. Good for you. It's called Office Romance. Do we have a look at a clip? Let's have a look at a clip. I want a bit of J-Lo in my podcast. Let's have a look at a clip.
Daniel, you need to be in Miss Cruz's office in 5 minutes.
Have you met Miss Cruz?
She's tough.
She hates the sound of breathing. Don't breathe. But if you have to, try to take a quick gasp through the side of your mouth like this.
You wanted to see me? Holy shit.
You're the new lawyer?
I am he, Daniel Lanceflower.
For most people, work is something that you have to endure. But for me, running this airline, this is the best part.
There is someone I like. It's my boss. She's dynamic. She's incredible.
This is not a date. This is a work dinner.
Cheers.
What's happening right now?
It's nothing.
One man.
Go home.
Jack! You're being deposed in the Dominican Republic.
Welcome aboard.
You're flying the plane.
I'm not just the CEO of Air Cruz, I'm also a pilot.
Fuck! Jesus.
Whoops! Sorry.
So Office Romance is a Netflix original movie. This is Jennifer Lopez playing a CEO for a airline. She's the daughter of the man that founded the airline. And as you watch the movie, you find out that a lot of the success that he had as the founder of the business really came from a lot of the choices and decisions that she made as a much younger person, sort of contributing to her father. So nowadays she's running the business, he's on the board, and the board are always looking for ways to get rid of her because they don't really take her seriously. They see her as the daughter of the man that began the business, but rarely has he sort of been vocal, sort of saying that, no, she's a worthy CEO of her own right.
Sarah Murdoch.
Now,
style.
as you find out through the film as well, the business has been in growth with her as CEO. So the idea that the board don't really appreciate her, like just, it doesn't quite ring true for what they're trying to say with the movie. Okay, we'll see if we can do another edit there. And now that's an issue which is regularly one of the things that kind of sinks this as a movie. So just put a pin in that. The film kicks off really because we've got a new lawyer that's joined the airline, played by one Brett Goldstein. People know him from Ted Lasso, from Soulmates, from, all sorts of things around the place these days. I don't think people need to be told who Brett Goldstein is. He comes into this with the limited range that I think Brett Goldstein really brings to the screen. I don't think he's probably necessarily the broadest, but I like what he does, and I've got so much fondness for Brett Goldstein.
Sure, yeah. We love his podcast. What's his podcast called? I can't remember what it's called, but it's very good.
Movies to be Buried With.
Movies to be Buried With, yes. Lovely,
yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, and if you listen to this week's episode, he's joined by one J-Lo.
Nice, I will be now.
So he comes in doing what Brett Goldstein does, which is, he's kind of fairly charming for inexplicable reasons. She ends up having to take him on as like the lead lawyer in a case that's being brought up against the airline. Now, the reason why he's in the seat is because the guy that's actually in charge of the legal department, one Bradley Whitford, he gets involved in an altercation involving a sausage. And so he can't necessarily, it's just the thing that happens, Simon.
All right, sure.
And so he can't necessarily come to represent her. So she meets this lawyer for the first time, being Brett Goldstein. She's, isn't really paying him that much attention because she's a bit concerned that he isn't bringing the legal strength that Bradley Whitford's character usually brings. And so she's concerned that, with her airline like at risk, that this is a huge problem. But he proves himself pretty quickly to the point where she invites him like into her office later on, and she's supposed to be a fairly sort of cold figure around the place. And he's immediately smitten with her. Like from moment one, he thinks that he says out loud, "Oh, you glow," in a way that, a human being doesn't actually ever say to another person, even if they're thinking that sort of internally.
Mm.
It's one of those character reactions that only ever happen in a really poorly written movie. But anyway, the two of them, she congratulates him on the thing. She apologizes to him because she didn't take him seriously at first, but he actually proved himself. And then they go and shake hands. At that point, she has a, not even comic, but certainly an overreaction when she looks down and notices that he has a big throbbing erection.
What?
While the two of them are engaged in this
You're
scene.
lying. That doesn't happen in the film.
No, this absolutely happens in the movie.
Daniel.
So he ends up leaving with great embarrassment.
Oh, my Lord. Okay. Okay, keep going on.
So he leaves with great embarrassment. He ends up apologizing. She accepts it. And eventually, as is the way with these kinds of movies, the two of them end up getting together. And the bad guy is the person that's trying to sue her. He's hired private investigators and finds out that the two of them are in a relationship together, and that threatens the ongoing viability of her being his CEO. And so obviously the ultimate question, which you realize is going to be the ultimate question because you've seen rom-coms before, is should she sacrifice her career in order to be able to have this relationship? And from his side of the desk, should he be putting her in that position? Because one, like, should he put her in that position? And two, it's also going to threaten his own ability to be able to stay in the country if he doesn't have this job at the
why? Yeah, okay.
So anyway, it's this whole series, because it's a rom-com, there's improbable situations that come, up. But broadly, the problem that I have with this movie, and the thing that really just kind of frustrates me, because what you've got is two fairly charming actors at the lead who they've actually got some pretty good chemistry for the most part.
I've heard as much. I've heard they have a good time
together. There's some
together.
genuinely funny moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's funny moments. It's not quite laugh out loud, but, there's certainly a few bits that kind of get there.
Mm.
But the problem is that a lot of I was about to say tentpole scenes.
Don't say that.
And
see, now you've said it, and I'm just still in some kind of dark space after what you said previously.
The marquee scenes in this don't really resonate and ring true as characters. So in order for you to buy into a rom-com, and a rom-com generally tends to be fairly broad and have characters acting in a way that regular people don't.
Mm.
And part of that is to really fuel some of the contrivances that you see in this as a genre.
Right.
But there's something about this where you also need to buy into the fact that these characters exist and are real, so that when things go off the rail, you kind of bought in and want to go along with the silliness of it.
Mm.
But right from the outset, there's just like all these sort of red flags you get where you don't quite buy into it enough to want to go along with it.
Mm.
And so this is things like her massive overreaction at the erection. Okay, is a bit of an issue because it just kind of seems like I think she sort of says, "What is that?" Like as though, she's a creature from Pandora that, doesn't quite understand such things. Like it just seemed a bit sort of weird and strange. Like he comes into the room and is like, "You glow." And it's like, well, human beings don't really say this sort of thing. Like, have this as like an aside or something. Okay, don't sort of actually verbally express it to the person. Like, it just kind of, from like just those early parts with us seeding the relationship, it just feels weird and strange.
I've got to
and then
watch...
you find out, just one other thing, you find out that she's actually really into British culture and British guys.
Right.
Okay, so the idea that like she's so repulsed by his erection in that scene as well just doesn't quite feel right. Like it sort of seems it's just a bit odd as they start layering in character elements to it. And then it ends with this sort of vibe that, oh, you've actually really been watching a party movie for this entire time, which I don't have a problem with the movie sort of pivoting in that direction. But at the same time, if you haven't bought into the reality of that world, it's hard to necessarily want to be part of that party.
I mean, I'm still at a loss as to that scene even exists. I've got to see how they handle that, so to speak. All
When
right,
you're
so
watching
that's
this on Netflix, Simon,
Yeah.
at the top of the screen, which will tell you sort of what the rating is,
Yes.
it will say that there is, I can't remember what they said, like,
They don't show it though, do they? It's not like something that like.
oh,
she
well,
doesn't-
you see it within the pants.
Oh my god!
It's quite the showing.
Wow.
But
okay.
at the top of the screen, they say something about high-level nudity or something like that. And so I saw the direction. I'm like, really, how high level can this
Dan,
be?
would you stop saying
I will
erection?
say, there is definitely high-level nudity that takes place in this movie.
Okay.
It is neither Goldstein nor Lopez. I'll say that much.
Oh, that's disappointing. All right. So between World Cup soccer matches, I've now got this to look forward to. I guess there's a link there with him being in Ted Lasso, it being a soccer story. So, all right, it's
Ted
called
Lasso,
Office
which
Romance.
returns in August.
Yeah, we're all very excited about that.
Are we?
It's called Office Romance. It's on the Netflix, and this has been the Screen Watching on Facebook at Screen Watching Podcast, over at our YouTube channel, which you can find on the youtube.com at Screen Watching. We also have an Instagram account, which does quite well. We never really mentioned that, but we should. I want to say at Screen Watching. It's probably something like that. But yeah, you'll find us somewhere if you go to the Instagram. I spend a lot of my time writing a Screen Space newsletter over on the Substack. I mentioned some of the things you can watch when the World Cup soccer isn't on. Over on my newsletter, I listed a whole bunch of films from all over the world you can also dip into. So check out this week's Screen Space newsletter on Substack. Over to you, Dan.
When I'm not spending my spare time watching YouTube clips of the middle-aged dad jam band, look it up. It's a thing, people. We put out a newsletter called Screen Watching. It's Monday through Friday emails that tell you, the interesting things that are happening in the world of screen. So mostly streaming TV, but with some streaming movies and video games and other screen culture type things sort of into the mix. Monday through Friday. And then on Friday afternoons, there is a TV guide with all the new and returning streaming products that you'll be able to stream across your weekends.
You let slip with quite the revelation in one of your newsletters this week that you had not seen The Sandlot, kids, or to our American listeners, The Sandlot, a seminal film of the, I want to say 90s. It's been a while since I've seen it, but you wrote at length about it, and it just came as a surprise when you mentioned that you hadn't seen The Sandlot.
Well, because the film came out, I'm going to say in like 1991. I was 11 years old.
That's
and
perfect.
Well, no, because you don't. If you're an 11-year-old, you're not watching movies that people think 11-year-olds watch. You're watching Up. So, absolutely. Also, I don't think it came out in 1991 here. I think we got it like a year or so later.
It was a bit later, yeah. And it wasn't much of a cinema release here. It was much more of a home video title, a VHS.
It's a VHS thing. Like when that came out, I was too busy being interested in things like, say, Wayne's World, for example, than I was The Sandlot kids. Like,
Between now and our next podcast, you'll be watching The Sandlot and giving it a recap just to catch up so you can catch up with the rest of the world.
I won't, because I'll be an adult man and I'm not going to sit down and watch The Sandlot kids. Simon, how old were you when The Sandlot kids came out?
I sold it on video. I had to watch it. I was a sales rep, that was CBS Fox. So I was a merchandiser and I was given a copy to watch. So there you go.
Okay, so Simon Foster, who was in the pocket of Big Sandlot at the time.
I was, yes. Yeah, I was profiteering for the Sandlot proprietors. Anyway, we've spoken at length about stuff this week that we really have gone on quite much longer than we thought we would. Quite much longer. We'll
quite
talk
much
next
longer.
week.
Much like Brett Goldstein and no. Folks,
Nice.
This has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week with less erection talk. Maybe. It depends on how the rating figures go for this. If the hits are big, then there'll certainly be a lot more erection talk next week. But
goodbye,
like and
Daniel.
subscribe.